Ready for some fresh air? We may have a body waiting for us in the desert. The caller was anonymous, but the directions were specific. GPS coordinates, no less. Since it's a remote crime scene, take the mobile analysis unit. It'll help you analyze the evidence quickly in the field. And you'll be working with Greg Sanders. Before you showed up, he was the new kid on the CSI block. His years of experience in the DNA lab have proven very useful in the field. Good luck.
Okay, even though this guy looks like he's been dead a while, there still may be some valuable information. Whoa, somebody beat us to this guy. This isn't exactly a National Forest Service campsite. This spot's used by college kids who like partying in the great outdoors, where nobody checks your ID for a beer. I know this isn't your first time out, but Grissom will have my hide if we don't follow strict procedure, which means document the body first. Vic's face up on a sleeping bag. No sign he's been moved or of a struggle. Could this be death by natural causes? Well, something left a mark. Slightly mummified with black discoloration. Strange. You'll want a different tool for that. You'll want a different tool for that. You'll want a different tool for that. Somehow I have a feeling this isn't a natural feature of this area. Way to be thorough. Looks like the area's clean. I haven't seen one of these in a while. An old school insulin bottle. Always nice to have a name written on a piece of evidence at a crime scene, huh? Wide tires. Looks like a 4x4. Tread isn't fresh. Not the best for matching. Way to be thorough. Looks like the area's clean. This is my first time using the mobile analysis unit in the field. Imagine a whole lab in your trunk. Where was this when I was a lab rat? Dried residue on the bottle checked out for insulin. No other chemicals present. Insulin. Maybe Arvik was a diabetic. That'll go on the trace analysis computer. You don't quite have a match there. You don't quite have a match there. You don't quite have a match. We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item. blowfly larva. If you were wondering what it takes to make Grissom smile, this is it. Third stage of development. This means the body's been decomposing 5 days. We've done all we can with that item. Lipstick for sure. But do you know how many flavors are out there? Let me tell you. Thousands. Old lab story. I think we've gathered all the time-sensitive materials we need. You can head back to HQ anytime you want.
Sure, I'll send a team right out. I can give you a decent seat in the ballpark, thanks to those blowfly larvae. Rigidity and lividity indicate the body's not been moved post-mortem. TOD estimate, 5 days. Still working on that. I found water in the lungs, so first glance suggests possible asphyxia from drowning. Don't quote me. Other parts of this autopsy don't add up. Another element that may or may not be important. Tox indicates levels of Jimsonweed tea. We checked his lower intestinal tract for seeds and came up with a garden of toxicity, levels of which you can verify in the lab. Not a factor. No broken skin, no brain hemorrhaging, or skull fractures. One thing though, the bruise discoloration was still forming, so the blunt force trauma occurred several hours before the time of death. Here's your reference prints and DNA. Why? You think that's a first? I had a case where an autopsy revealed baby rats gestating in the stomach. Luckily, that's not the case here. Maybe Mommy didn't find a suitable nesting spot inside our Vic. Yes, he was. This would explain why he had an insulin bottle with him at the crime scene. But diabetes had nothing to do with his death. I've got nothing new to report on the Vic.
These results from the Jimsonweed seeds show a non-lethal amount. Based on these levels, he probably ingested this hours before he died.
Trace the name on the prescription to a condo at 337 Fawn Road, Las Vegas. According to records, he lives there with his wife, one Carla Mitchell. Here's a surprise. Our victim has a local celebrity for a mother, real estate developer Emily Hansen.
Las Vegas Crime Lab, Mrs. Mitchell. We're sorry to have to bother you at a time like this, but I'm sure you understand it's necessary.
Of course. But you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little out of focus. I haven't even begun to come to grips with Derek's death. Seems so unreal. And just when things were going so well. He was due home today from his camping trip, and I was planning his favorite meal for him. Do you know what happened?
We're trying our best to figure it out, Mrs. Mitchell.
Actually, yes. He liked to go backpacking once or twice a month. He'd take a bus, hike as far as he could go, and get out under God's great sky, as he said. Not that he was religious, but the desert held a certain spirituality for him. I never went with him. I may live in a desert town, but I'm a city girl, and I don't like getting my hands dirty. Last time I saw him, oh, God, that's such an awful sound. Must have been, yes, it was over breakfast right before he left. I was going to work. He told me he'd be gone out camping for a while, starting that very afternoon. That was typical of Derek, Mr. Spontaneity. 6 days ago? Yes, 6 days. He needed to stop at his mom's house on the way out to the desert to pick up his gear. We didn't have room to store it here. His mom was willing, which is a little surprising since Derek and his mother aren't exactly close. I guess you know I'm an attorney. I think maybe you've testified in 1 or 2 cases of mine against my client. But that's the way the game is played, right? Anyway, I've been consumed with my next big trial looming. Now, I know in a case like this, you always look at the spouse first. But let me save you a step. No way could I have driven out to the desert, even if I had known where in God's name he'd set up camp. I just haven't had the time. I hate to stand on legal formalities, but as much as I want you to find out what happened to Derek, I need to limit the chaos in my life. I'll have to insist on a warrant to show cause before I let you toss my house. I'm sorry.
We understand.
Derek was pretty easygoing, and I can't think of... No, wait, there is one person, though enemy is a little strong. You see, our contractor quit recently after he and Derek got into it. Name's Lou Astor, and he is one sleazy character. Frankly, much as I'd like to get our kitchen remodeling done, I'm glad that creep is out from underfoot.
Where can we find this contractor?
At Ravenson Construction. I even remember the address from paying his padded bills. 5311 Seffield Road. No, I'm not the truck type. If it helps, I do know that Derek's mother owns one. An old Chevy, I think. I'm wearing it right now, but my lips have natural color, so sometimes I wear a clear shade, and never red. Yeah, it's one of those habits I can't break him of. Usually takes a little for use in the wilderness.
According to my driver's license. What's up? What's the crime lab need with a poor working stiff like yours truly?
A stiff of another kind turned up in the desert. Derek Hardy. You knew him?
Yeah, I know him. New? Dude is dead? Why would you notify me about it? He was just another client of mine. Former client. Former, even before he was dead. Hell, I don't know. A week maybe? A little more, a little less? Out at that condo of his and his wife's when the jerk fired me. May he rest in peace. God, where was I 5 minutes ago? Hell, let me think here. Must have been working at Emily's, yeah. She's all right. Ball breaker, but fair. That was days I worked. Nights, I was hanging at the ballpark. Yeah, minor league park, watching my nephew play. In the company of friends and family, I should add. A lot of friends and family. I don't think so. I got rights here, and I'm not crazy about the direction this is going.
Mind if we look around? Or do you intend to be strictly uncooperative? That's a direction we aren't crazy about.
Look, I don't want to stand in your way of nothing. Have at it. But the shop floor only, huh? Stay the hell out of my office. That's private. I don't let nobody in there. No, I'm a contractor who rides a bike with training wheels. What kind of detectives are you? Yes, I drive a truck. Professional grade. Dually. That's all I got for you.
Way to be thorough. Looks like the area's clean. Way to be thorough. Looks like the area's clean. Looks like a junk box, but maybe there'll be some evidence treasure in the trash. Way to be thorough. Looks like the area's clean. There's more we should do with that item before we can process it. You'll want a different tool for that. Pity this jar isn't labeled, but it must not have come out of that kind of lab. We've done all we can with that item. Well, unidentified or not, this is the same substance as the one found in the tobacco. If Astor had access to this substance and found it in the Vic's tobacco, it's possible that the contractor did the mixing, even if the Vic himself did the rolling. We gotta find out what this stuff is.
I don't have anything for you right now.
One and the same. Lives out at Charleston Hills, a gated community. She doesn't have my vote, but you don't need to bring that up. Oh yeah, her boss places her at work, doing overtime for the whole week. He's been investigated more times than certain members of Congress. Fraud, extortion, even illegal gambling. In Vegas, that's a good trick. No convictions, though. Still makes you wonder why a respectable woman like Emily Hansen would want this scumbag working for her.
You know I am, and you obviously know what a bad time this is for me. I've lost my son, and I've already spent several hours with you LVPD people this morning. If you'll excuse me.
We're with the crime lab, Mrs. Hansen, investigating your son's death. As much as we hate intruding into your time of grief, we need to ask a few questions.
My son was willfully unusual. You'll need to be specific.
Unusual as in a bruise on his forehead?
I noticed nothing of that nature. No injuries, no contusions. Although if Derek ended up that way, I can't say I'm surprised, considering the poor judgment he showed, backpacking into that wasteland of lowlifes and druggies. Perhaps Derek felt at home among that trash. Drugs and parties were how he spent his college days. Never grew up, I'm afraid. You think I'm cruel? Cold? Assume what you like, but I'm a mother who lost her child long, long ago. A week ago. No, 6 days. Right before this last ill-advised desert excursion. I saw him when he picked up his camping gear. Here at home working. I have an office here. Lou Astor was. He's a contractor who's done a lot of work for me over the years. Recently, I recommended him to Derek and his wife. But when Mr. Astor stopped by that day, he mentioned that he'd been fired by them. The contractor was gone by the time Derek stopped here. You don't think Astor could be responsible? I know he's a bit of a roughneck and has a certain reputation, but he's always done reliable work for me. I'd hate to think. A disaster area. My darling daughter-in-law, Carla, is a 14-carat tramp. Derek only married her because I disapproved. Sheer rebellion. Simply sheer rebellion. It's the safest bet in Las Vegas that little slut is sleeping around on my son.
Just to eliminate you.
I'm sure you expect me to cooperate fully in your efforts to find out what happened to my son. And I do commend your public service. But as you may know, I'm a candidate for public office myself, and I intend not to be embarrassed. You will follow the rules. It will take a warrant to get my fingerprints or to search my house. And now, if there's nothing else, please leave me to my thoughts and my sorrow. That I will gladly bestow you. Take it and go. A truck? No. not anymore. I had a Chevy Blazer for some time, but sold it recently. Just 3 weeks ago.
Mom's lipstick is similar to what we found in the desert, but the cigarette brands don't match. We've done all we can with that item. That'll go on the trace analysis computer.
Already have, at the new owner's home. Hey, they can't all be hard. Even got a tread print for you. You're welcome. You read the papers? Front page in the Las Vegas Post. Financial problems in Hanson's campaign. Staffers are abandoning ship. Seems paychecks have grown scarce lately. And an op-ed piece suggests Emily's son's lifestyle has hurt her in the polls. Motive? Maybe.
Tread types are definitely similar, but the tread marks taken from the desert weren't fresh, so the wear marks can't be matched exactly.
Once you've got enough evidence, I'll hit up a judge.
I gave it a cursory look. My attorney will give it a harder one. That paper supports my opponent, and they deal in half-truths and outright lies. Regardless, anyone who's ever been a parent understands the limitations and the disappointments even the best mothers and fathers face.
Is it true your son reneged on a large campaign contribution?
That's a ridiculously overblown way to put it. I wasn't angry at all about that. Derek said his funds were low, and I believed him. And anyway, he contributed in the past, generously, which I appreciated. Whatever private problems we had, my son supported my efforts as a public person. Besides which, my campaign has ample funding. If you're looking for dirt, my laundry is not the place to look for it. I'd suggest you take a long, lingering look at my son's promiscuous widow. I don't deal with rumor or speculation either. In fact, I had one of my security people keep Carla under surveillance. All my suspicions, it seems, were well-founded. That round-heeled slattern is a disgrace to our good name. Maybe so, but I haven't seen that vehicle in weeks. Do you really think I drove out into the middle of the desert to find and kill my own son? What kind of monster do you take me for?
So how exactly is Carla getting her marriage back on track? And who's this other guy? So Carla takes out an insurance policy to protect the kids she and Derek didn't have, with her husband worth more dead than alive and a new boyfriend on the horizon. Well, look up motive in Webster's and it'll refer you to this.
Let me guess. You've been to see my husband's mother, Emily. Isn't she a peach? She hates me, and always has. Jealous that Derek chose me over her, angry that my religion is different than hers, and always blaming me for her son's out-of-control behavior.
We're trying to interpret evidence, Mrs. Mitchell, not make wild assumptions about people's character.
You'll have to forgive me, but if you had a mother-in-law like Emily... Anyway, I'd be lying if I didn't say Derek and I have had patches of rough road together. But lately Derek had really turned himself around, was totally committed to joining me in a normal life. We had our wild years, okay? Now we've changed directions. We're the straightest couple you're likely to find in this town. Along those lines, we took out an insurance policy, $500,000 each. Derek's trust fund has gotten whittled away, and if we were going to start a family, we wanted that security for the kids we hope to have. If you want to consider that suspicious, well, fine. But I want to be straight with you. Derek would want me to be straight with you. Thank God someone in the Vegas media is finally telling the truth about that witch. She nagged and nagged about him contributing to her campaign coffers. Just a friend of mine, co-worker at the legal office. Where the hell did you get that?
Well, your mother-in-law thinks this friend is a lover.
Does she? So even the police are falling prey to her manipulative BS. She's a political animal, and when the heat's on her, she shifts it onto me, huh? Look, this guy's really just a friend, and I don't see why he should suffer because Emily Hansen wants to build up her reputation by tearing down others. How can you be so cold? I just lost the man I love, and if a friend wants to lend a sympathetic shoulder, that's hardly against the law. Sorry. I know you're just doing your job, and you have to look at everything and everybody, and I really do want to help. Look, you wanted boots, remember? I found some that my husband bought me ages ago. I intended to give them away. I know I never wore them. Maybe they'll help prove my innocence? Yes, an old habit from, frankly, his head days. He always preferred hand-rolled cigarettes. He was a tobacco connoisseur. I've told you all I can.
Man, you make it sound serious. It was just this minor beef with him. Matter of fact, it was his wife who told me to stop working on their kitchen and get my stuff out. You know, typical contractor clients, always thinking you're overcharging and taking too long. Otherwise, that wife is all right. Easy on the eyes, too, and always ready with a lemonade or something for a hard-working man. Now, Mom, old Emily, good as she's been to me, I gotta say, she and her son, no love lost there. I mean, those two are at each other's throats. And Mommy? Whoa, that old girl is dangerous. Much as I hate to lose a good client, you ought to give her a kind of hard look, you know what I mean? One thing, I overheard her talking to baby boy on the phone. Seems Derek had come into some serious trust fund money after his father passed. And at some point, Sonny Boy promised Mommy Dearest he'd kick in on her campaign. Only he reneged. Not only did I not write it, I never seen it before.
Would you mind giving us a writing sample so we can exclude you?
I already told you I never seen it. What part of I got my rights don't you people understand? I don't know what her son was really up to, but to hear her tell it, Sonny Boy was partying hardy, all night, every night. Why that idiot didn't get on his mother's good side, I'll never get. I mean, with the power she'd be coming into, if she won that election, he could have been on Cush Street.
In the first place, my son and I had no financial difficulties. Our conflicts were philosophical. In the second place, that doesn't even sound like me. I would hardly threaten my own son. And even if I had, would I do so in such a cryptic fashion? I'm not sure this proves it, but I have this dated receipt from an estimate. Don't mind my doodles in the margins.
Once you got enough evidence, I'll hit up a judge.
Until we know what it is, I won't be able to say. We can't test for something without knowing what it is. Strong possibility. Cocaine and crack cocaine overdoses cause seizures, high blood pressure, or increased heart rate. If you don't die immediately from those, within 3 days you're at risk for a heart attack or stroke.
That'll go on the trace analysis computer. 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 Looks like our contractor remodeled the truth into lies. He wrote this note.
Chemical in the tobacco matches that stuff Astor had in his shop. Let's see what else he's constructing in there. This warrant is good for anything chemically related, as well as any signs of Derek.
Hell, this is a place of business, and you're gonna cost me money. What the hell kind of grounds do you have anyway to come intruding like this?
Read the warrants and see. You may want to skim down to where it says lethal substance. Way to be thorough. Sodium monofluoroacetate, also known as compound 1080. Wouldn't want to pop my popcorn in here. You'll want a different tool for that. You'll want a different tool for that. Here today.
That's all I got for you.
The DNA analyzer will tell you what you need. Derek's hair on the broken rake handle. I don't think it got there while Derek was raking leaves. Not in Vegas, anyway. We've done all we can with that item. Let's run this evidence by Captain Brass. We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item. You can run that on the chemical analyzer. Odorless, tasteless, poisonous. Lethal dose is only 1/100th of an ounce. Possible murder weapon, but let's not get cocky till Doc Robbins has his say.
It's the VIX. Service provider was very helpful. 3 stored messages on the voicemail. Got them all on tape.
Hey, handsome. Thanks for the nice long talk last night. Anytime you're in the mood for stimulating conversation, I guess you know the number. And if a private show is on your mind, you know where to find your shining star.
Doesn't quite sound like the little woman, huh? Bone sex, slap dances. Derek was not as domesticated as his wife thought.
Derek, where the hell are you? You know we have company tonight. If you're out gambling again, I swear to God, call me and get your irresponsible ass home.
Carla's tone is a tad different than the sweet, patient wife she's been laying on us.
Well, Derek, I certainly raised a class act for a son. Hanging up on his own mother. Lovely. You know what the problem is? I spoiled you when tough love was called for. And if you don't honor your financial commitment to my campaign, my darling boy, I will show you just how tough a mother's love can be. Do I make myself clear?
And here I was wondering why Emily didn't make Mother of the Year. Well, it's just an ordinary, everyday scorecard. It's illegal gambling, high-stakes poker, the kind of pot that makes a CSI's yearly salary look like nickel dime. You got stood up when company came, and thought your husband might have been out gambling. Thought you and Derek had worked all that out.
Listen, Derek was human. He fell off his various wagons from time to time, and I had to be the bad guy sometimes. If that's suspicious, go out and arrest every couple that argues, why don't you? Anyway, I'd cooked a gourmet dinner for his friends, and he stood us all up. I've told you all I can.
You say you found his prints on a poker chip. I got no idea. Far as I remember, the guy was never here. Maybe those chips were in a box of stuff from his condo that I took after I got fired. Just some stuff of his that got accidentally mixed in with mine.
I don't have anything else for you.
Yes, shape of the wound, nature of the blunt instrument, Vic's hair. This rake handle is consistent with a head wound. Now I know what we're dealing with. I can safely say cause of death is poisoning by sodium monofluoroacetate, compound 1080, a rare and interesting poison. The toxic effects of SFMA usually happen within minutes of ingestion and result from a conversion of non-toxic fluoroacetate ions to toxic fluorocitric acid, which then blocks the Krebs cycle, affecting the central nervous system and heart. Typically, death results from ventricular tachycardia or heart fibrillation. Layman's terms, ventricles of the heart start beating so rapidly as to prevent the pumping of blood. In some cases, death could be from respiratory failure caused by pulmonary edema. This essentially fills the lungs with water. Grissom wants you in the lab now that COD's been determined.
So, cause of death was determined to be pesticide. The Vic smoked it on his walkabout and dropped dead. But it's playing havoc with our Trinity. We don't have anyone to physically match to the crime scene.
You said it yourself. He died in the desert, potentially alone, but he was killed by poison. So what should you be looking for now?
A second crime scene, where the poison was originally mixed into the tobacco. And that's where we will find evidence linking the suspect to that crime scene.
Nicely reasoned, Greg. Now follow through.
Is Lou Astor a contractor or an exterminator? Guy's got enough pesticide to wipe out a city block, and his tools have traces of our Vic on them. Let's bring Mr. Astor in and see what he can build for us this time.
A lot of people owe me money. It's the nature of the construction business. Yeah, so what? I run a friendly game between friends, you know?
Right, friendly.
Yeah, and Hardy owed me money from a recent game. Chump change for him, but he was stiffing me, and I was feeling like the chump. Guy just would not pay up. Acted like I was the lowly grunt who works with his hands, and he's some special rich kid.
So you write him a friendly note, you tell him to pay up or else, then you wait for him to come around the shop and crack him over the head with a rake.
That wasn't the way it was. He freaks out about my note, and he comes over here and goes off on me. So sure, I defended myself. I mean, the bastard said he was gonna kill me. Would you just stand there and let him rough you up? I don't think so.
Interesting take. Here's another. Derek was in the red with you in a big way, you and your poker friends. So you whack him a good one, sending him to his knees, breaking that rake in half. And while Derek's having a little nap on the floor, you take the opportunity to lift his tobacco from his pocket and sprinkle pesticide in his cigarettes.
Poison him? What are you, high? Listen, that ain't my style. If I got a problem with somebody, I'm not gonna... Geez, are you kidding? I mean, is that how he died?
And we found it in Derek's tobacco, too.
Hey, in my business, pesticide is part of the program. Let me tell you, I am beyond careful with that stuff. It's as deadly as a heart attack, and I keep it under lock and key in the office. I even wear gloves when I handle it.
Careful precautions, like leaving an open jar in your shop.
Please. I must have misplaced the lid when I used it up. Frickin' jar was empty anyway. No harm done. Listen, I didn't care much for the dude, but I didn't kill him. I don't know, you'd have to check my records to know for sure. I mean, I've used it a lot. A few months back, Emily Hansen said, what was it she said? Oh yeah, she said, I have some pests that need taking care of. I brought it over there, but I think I spooked her some when I told her the care she needed to take around that deadly crap. Well, I was going to, but Carla has all these cats, you know, and she was worried about them getting into it, so I hauled it out of there. That's all I got for you.
Mother had pesticide in her garage, and she was there when Derek stopped by. We also have evidence linking her to the desert crime scene. I think we can get a judge to let us search that garage for anything that kills chemically.
Here at the house all day. Mr. Astor, my contractor, stopped by briefly, then left. I saw my son that afternoon. We spoke briefly in the garage as he was picking up his camping gear, which had been in storage there for months. I never touched any of it, by the way. Then he was on his way. Really quite unremarkable, except for the fact that I would never see him alive again. Well, if that isn't wonderful news.
Memos to her campaign manager. I hate paperwork. Looks like they talk about her son, though. Pesticide Safety, a consumer's handbook. Not your standard book of the month club material. Oh, somebody thoughtfully dog-eared a page for us. And here's our old friend, Compound 1080. I think we all have a hunch what this stuff is, but let's be sure. Way to be thorough. Looks like the area's clean.
I don't have anything else for you.
You don't quite have a match there. Little details make all the difference when you're doing a comparison. When you're sure, then ask me for a confirmation. Emily must have known all about the pesticide as a poison, but knowing doesn't necessarily mean doing. There's more we should do with that item before we can process it. We've done all we can with that item. Derek's mom definitely had access to the pesticide in her garage, and she could easily have doctored his tobacco when he stopped by. This tracks. We know Lou brought some of the rodenticide over to Emily's house.
Mama has a book on pesticides, as well as the killer powder in her house when her son stopped by. Let's hear her story.
So I left a harsh message for my wayward son, and that leads you to think I committed filicide?
You're a confident woman, Mrs. Hanson. Maybe you thought you'd never be found out, and the papers are already saying you're winning the sympathy of the voters.
Kill my own child to improve my position in the polls. Does that strike you as an effective way to attract votes? He had pledged financial support, and when he changed his mind, I had to let key staffers go and expose my financial weakness to the media. But since then, we've regained our footing and we'll do fine without his help. $100,000. If that sounds like a murder motive to you, tell me how I gained from my son's death. My sweet daughter-in-law, however, stands to pick up a cool $500,000. I saw a copy of the policy. We share an insurance agent. Why wouldn't I if I planned to have that vile substance around? My garage was rat-infested and I meant to do something about it. Is killing rats a crime in Las Vegas?
No, unless the rat was a big one, named Derek, who had come around to pick up his camping gear. You knew he was coming over, so you manipulated your contractor friend Astor to bring you some pesticide. While Derek is distracted, you poison his tobacco, a dose perfect for seeing to it his desert camping expedition is his last.
Is that how you solve crimes, Captain Brass? Spin conjecture all day? I never touched that pesticide, nor even opened the book. I didn't have time. And I did not poison my son's tobacco, though I told that boy time and again that smoking would kill him someday. Now, if you're quite finished with wasting my time, perhaps I can provide a fact, not conjecture. There's something I found that I must have thrown away after Derek cleared out his camping gear. Look, I found a receipt that must have dropped out of Derek's jacket pocket.
You should have handed that over earlier, Mrs. Hanson. It may be evidence.
Well, I thought it was just trash at the time, but upon reflection, I began to think otherwise. It's a receipt for tobacco, the day before the crime. I called the tobacco shop, and you'll want to do the same.
We will, but why do you say that, Mrs. Hanson?
Well, as I say, the receipt had been in Derek's pocket, apparently, but the tobacco was purchased by Carla, the clerk said. And here's an interesting tidbit about my loving daughter-in-law. Smoking is not one of her numerous bad habits.
Yeah, I had a long talk with the clerk who knew Carla all the way from Catholic school. He also told me that Carla bought the tobacco the day before her husband left for the camp out. We know there was pesticide at the condo. We know Carla bought tobacco, and we know she's being friendly with others. Did Carla spike her husband's tobacco in his own house? You now have a search warrant for evidence to answer that question.
Oh dear. Well, that's good, isn't it? I mean, it's progress at least. Please tell me he didn't suffer.
He did suffer, but it wasn't prolonged. There was a highly toxic pesticide in his tobacco. He smoked it and died of the poison.
Poison? My God, that's terrible. My baby, my poor, poor baby. Derek had his faults. God knows. I know, but how did this happen? Derek? Suicide? No, never a word. Frankly, he was too selfish for that. Oh, is that terrible for me to say, to admit? But he was self-centered, like all substance abusers and sick gamblers. And he was struggling with kicking his various habits, but still, I wouldn't call him depressed or anything. Oh my, do I have to? Really, this is personal, and it's all I have left of him. Those last memories. Well, we woke up and made love and just rolled over into each other's arms and... Anyway, then he got up and made breakfast. While we ate breakfast, he sprung it on me. He was taking one of his trips out into the desert. He didn't think I'd mind, since I was going to be working all week on my upcoming trial. Around then, Lou Astor, that jerk contractor, dropped by to pick up his materials. We didn't even talk to him. He was still in the kitchen, cleaning up after breakfast when I left for work, and that was the last time I saw him. An image I'll treasure, because for all his faults and selfishness, there was that thoughtful side. I'm not really sure. He said he was planning to use this virulent pesticide, and I said, like hell you are. I didn't want my cats using up their 9 lives.
Did you happen to see where he kept it?
No, as I say, I can't be sure if it even was here. Are we talking an aerosol spray can like bug killer? Might have been in the kitchen, under the sink, or under the counter. Frankly, he cluttered our kitchen up something fierce. I was happy when he finally came and hauled that junk out. What a mess. Maybe. I really have no idea.
Derek's been gone for a week. How often do they do the laundry around here? Way to be thorough. Looks like the area's clean. Looks like this lid fits the jar in the contractor's shop. Careful, something's on the inside. Smells like tobacco. There's more we should do with that item before we can process it. They say tobacco kills. Sure does, especially with the pesticide blend. So, poison was mixed inside the lid at the condo. Derek and Carla were having their last breakfast together, and Lou, the friendly contractor, stopped by. Man, any one of them could have done it. There's more we should do with that item before we can process it. The DNA analyzer will tell you what you need. You don't quite have a match there. Little details may... Derek wasn't responsible for this deposit of bodily fluid, so that sympathetic shoulder Carla was seeking was more than shoulder. There's more we should do with that item before we can process it.
Special meaning. And you especially made sure you had to take it with him out in the desert.
I really have no idea what you're getting at. My husband liked to roll his own cigarettes. I gave him some tobacco as a gift.
Same unique blend that killed your husband.
Well, that is odd, I admit. And as I say, he rolled his own cigarettes. Wouldn't he have noticed if someone mixed something toxic in?
This was odorless, tasteless, and worth a shot, with $500,000 payday waiting for the loving wife.
Spare me your sarcasm, Captain. I already told you, that money means nothing to me. I earn my own considerable income as an attorney. Wasn't I the one who told you about the policy and warned you it would look suspicious? I didn't touch any jar, and I have no idea how pesticide might have gotten in my husband's tobacco. Why don't you ask that jackass Astor? It was his pesticide, wasn't it? Hell, it was his jar! Just like I said before, he got up and made us breakfast. You don't think he could have poisoned himself, do you? I mean, he seemed happy. Then we were eating, and the contractor stopped by to get his junk out of our kitchen. We just left him alone. Neither of us wanted to talk to him. Wait, the contractor was in our kitchen. He could have poisoned him right behind our backs. God, I can't believe it. Do what you have to. Anything to help eliminate me so you can go after the real killer.
You can't play the loyal wife who had just turned her wayward husband around when this tragedy happened. Not when the semen stains we found don't belong to your late husband.
I was going to end it. The affair, I mean. It started before Derek turned his life around, during a time when I felt very, very alone. And even when Derek and I started crawling back up out of the hole our marriage had become, my friend, as you put it, was there for me, supporting me. I'm not the only woman with two men in her life that she cares about.
You don't quite have a match there. Little details may...
He's on his way to interrogation now. You knew Derek smoked tobacco? You had pesticide ready in both the shop and the house. It would have been child's play to tamper with his camping gear.
That is a bunch of bull. I told you before, I just dropped that stuff off. I was gonna use it later.
To kill Derek?
To kill the rats in Mrs. Hanson's garage. Look, I've offed my share of pests, but Derek Hardy wasn't one of them. Big deal. I worked at that condo. A lot of my stuff was there. But I would never leave that rat killer compound around with the lid off. I ain't no idiot. That hot wife must have taken it off. Or maybe Derek took it off and offed himself. Did you geniuses ever think of that? I never touched his damn tobacco, and I got no memory of ever opening that jar. Write this down and take every word. I didn't poison nobody but a bunch of damn rats. Rodent type, not human. God, I wish. But hey, what kind of guy do you think I am?
She's on her way to interrogation now.
Gladly. It will be just another memory to store away until I'm elected and can begin going after all your jobs.
You don't quite have a match. Not quite. Something similar. You'll want a different tool for that. Unusual spot for a fingerprint. So we have a bruise on the forehead and a boot print in the tent. Maybe a fellow camper whacked the Vic upside the head, then rifled through his gear. Woman's hiking boot, size 5. So a woman was out here with him at some point.
This just came in. We found the car in Utah. The woman driving it gave us her testimony. Bottom line, she hung out with him 3 days ago, then split home. Says it was her camera that took the photo you found. For your info, her car has a GPS and a mobile phone. She wears size 5 boots that match our print. She smokes, and her lipstick is of the reddish variety that matches our sample. And her voice matches the 911 tape. Since she didn't have any poison on her, I think we can cross her and her evidence off our list. She's on her way to interrogation now.
I've told you all I can.
She's on her way to interrogation now.
And now I'm accused of the criminal act of being informed about a deadly substance I needed to use around the house. How evil of me.
When you lie to us, it makes you look evil.
Perhaps I did read about the poison. Honestly, I can't remember if I did or didn't. It's all so trivial at a time like this. I know you find it hard to believe, but I loved my son. We had our problems, and ours was not the ideal mother and son relationship. But I was still his mother, and I gave him his life. I did not take it. How remarkable. What brilliant detectives you are. Finding a mother's fingerprints at her son's condo from months ago. How terribly, horribly incriminating for me. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a life to rebuild and a campaign to run and win.
He's on his way to interrogation now.
That's all I got for you.
I've got nothing new to report on the Vic.
We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item.
She's on her way to interrogation now.
I've told you all I can.
You don't quite have a match there.
She's on her way to interrogation now.
I've told you all I can.
We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item. You don't quite have a match there. Little details make all the difference when you're doing a comparison. When you're You don't quite have a match there. We've done all we can with that item. We've done all we can with that item. You don't quite have a match there. We've done all we can with that item.
He's on his way to interrogation now.
That's all I got for you. That's all I got for you.
She's on her way to interrogation now.
I don't have anything else for you.
I don't have anything for you right now. I've got nothing new to report on the Vic.
prints on the jar lid tell the whole story.
You're wrong. I loved my husband. You're wasting time going down the wrong road. My theory is that ball-breaking mother of his is in on it with Astor.
Well, it wasn't Mom's prints on the jar lid. It was yours. And she didn't buy the tobacco. You did. Just like she didn't mix the poison.
You didn't find out at the last second about your husband's camping trip. You knew in advance, which is why you bought the tobacco the day before, giving you plenty of time to mix it with pesticide and send him off to the desert to die.
But you dropped the lid and couldn't get to it. So, to throw off suspicion, you called contractor Lou Astor and had him collect his materials and haul them away before your husband left.
You want a confession? You're not going to get one. I'm an attorney and I know my rights. And incidentally, I'm innocent. I didn't need the money, and I loved him despite his faults.
Maybe at one time, and whether you needed his money or not, what wife could sit there while her husband gambled away a trust fund? Here he is married to a beautiful woman like you, and he throws his money away on strippers.
But Mrs. Mitchell, Carla, why not just divorce the guy?
I'm not saying another word.
Didn't you know, Greg? Carla's a Catholic, and divorce is a sin. Anyway, a divorce settlement wouldn't have meant squat with that trust fund whittled away. But $500,000 in life insurance could make up for a lot of indignities.
I'll see you in court. You'll love it. I'll defend myself.
Perfect. And like the old saying goes, you'll have a fool for a client.
The tragedy of marriage, a wag once said, is that all women marry thinking their man will change, and all men marry believing their wives will never change. And both are wrong. For Carla Mitchell, marriage was built on trust. A trust fund, that is. When she saw it melt away, she sought a new policy, life insurance. Her poison of choice was tasteless and odorless, but not invisible, to the eyes of science at least. You did well. Let's evaluate your performance. You investigated every possible angle on this case. Doesn't happen often, but I'm very impressed.